Okay, I think let's get started. I'm just gonna do a very quick introduction before I pass the mic to Edgar. GM everyone, really happy to see you guys back here again for our ecosystem spotlight. Today, we have with us Chris from Renzo. And before we begin, I just want to say that every bi-weekly we have this ecosystem spotlight session where we invite all our partners stage to kind of like share more about what they are building and also how they are tapping on Symbiotix one way or another, right? So, meanwhile, throughout this call, you will be hearing some small little alpha from our partners as well. So I hope you are excited for today's session because Chris is from Red Bull, and I believe today is going to be a pretty exciting session. Yeah. So let's get started. I'm just pass the mic back to Edgar to kickstart the entire session. Edgar, let's kickstart things.
Okay, guys, so waiting on Symbiotix to join. Maybe he's experiencing some issues with his mic.
Oh
Hey,
wait, you
Symbiotix.
can't hear me? Wait,
Oh, we
can
still
can
can't
anyone
hear
hear
you.
me?
I can hear you, Seabadak. I'm gonna message Edgar right now because I think he might not be able to hear us.
Okay, sounds good. Sounds good. Let me just drop in a message.
Yeah. Sorry to everyone who's waiting on the call, but
Let me rejoin.
yeah.
Oh yes, rejoin. Great. Let me see. All right, he's here. Let me invite him.
Hello, hello.
Hello,
Hi.
Edgar. Can you hear me?
Okay, okay, it's now working on my end. Me.
Oh,
Um.
okay. Wait.
Okay. I'm not sure. What do you think the best thing to do is, Seabadak?
I think Edgar should close his entire browser and uh restart his browser again. That could be one of the reason why. One sec. May drop you a text as well. Hmm. Okay, he's restarting his browser. Great. Wow, 231 people already. I think everyone is super excited for this session.
Yep. But I don't know if anyone is waiting out there. Feel free to drop some questions for me or for Edgar or anyone else to answer at the end of the chat. Because I know we have some time scheduled for an open Q&A at the end.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Yep, so if you guys have any questions, feel free to just drop it. Later on when Edgar is going to the AMA with Chris, I'll be picking up some questions from the floor for you to take on, Chris. So yeah, definitely excited to
Yeah, I
to
think I still can't hear you.
Oh, still can't hear me? But can you hear wait, but can he hear you, Chris?
He just it looks like left the chat again. I don't think he can hear any of us. I'm not sure if it's his computer that is messing up or if it's just something with Discord
It could
specifically.
be a Discord setting. Output device. One sec. Well, worst come to worst, I can host this AMA on behalf of him. But I just need to check in with him a little bit. So let's see.
Okay, now I hear you.
Can you hear me now? Testing one, two,
Yes.
three. Awesome,
Yeah.
awesome. Yeah. Basically, I welcome Edgar. Like, sorry guys for the short, I would say errors here and there. Like, everything is good now. So I'll be passing the mic to you, Edgar, so you can kickstart the AMA. Let's go.
Yeah. Thank you so much for your patience. Sorry about that. I do these every 2 weeks, and yet somehow I end up having technical issues, so it's a bit weird. But thank you so much for attending this one. Thank you, uh, most importantly, Chris, for joining. You guys, you're representing Renzo. You're a great ecosystem player in our space, and it's great to have you on. Like we talk very often, so yeah, great to have you. Like talk in front of our community and talk about like the updates and everything restaking. I think Renzo is like one of the major like LRTs in the space, and it's great to you know get to talk with you guys and get your opinion on like what's the latest in the restaking space, how you see restaking having evolved. So yeah, like let's so first and foremost, like yeah, please like introduce yourself and remind us what's Renzo, what do you guys do in Symbiotic, and yeah, what are your goals before for the rest of the year?
Yeah, so I'm Chris. I'm on the Renzo team. I've been there for a little over a year on the growth side. So I spend a lot of time talking to AVSs that we work with or networks on Symbiotic, checking in on their progress, doing a little bit of research to understand which ones we want to secure or which ones we potentially don't. And Renzo is one of the liquid restaking protocols that is on Symbiotic. So we have our token PZETH, which is backed entirely by Lido's WST and then we restake that on Symbiotic to secure a bunch of different Symbiotic networks. So um, today we are securing a few different ones, including Tansy, Primev, and a couple more. So we try to make it as simple as we can for our users to get involved with restaking. So if they are someone who just has very little crypto experience, it's every, every day a little bit easier and a little bit safer for our users. And then, sorry, Edgar, you said what our goals are for the rest of the year.
Yeah, but we can also like leave it up for the end of the podcast. It's always good to talk about that then. Yeah, so just to transition into like the rest of the AMA, what we like to do typically before we start diving into some deeper questions is doing some rapid fire questions. Like some very like I guess like you could say like TikTok friendly format questions about what you guys are doing and the space in general. So let's kick it off. What's
Sounds
one
good.
thing most people misunderstand about liquid risk-taking?
I think, generally, if you are someone who's been following liquid restaking since the very beginning, um, you know that restaking has gone through a different level of hype. So at the start, it was very hyped. Everyone was talking about restaking. I'm sure when you open, your Twitter, you would scroll and you would see 1,000 different posts all about restaking. And today, it's not necessarily like that. So there's a lot of FUD associated with it, but we think it's the best way to start a new network, to bootstrap your new tokens, to get security that otherwise would take hundreds of millions of dollars and years of effort. So we think that liquid restaking might not be as hyped as it used to be, but it definitely will be a thing that is very used in the future.
Amazing. What's the most underrated design choice in rental?
I think generally we try to make things as easy for the user as possible. So we don't want you to have to manually claim your rewards in a separate, transaction or go to a separate website to claim and then connect your wallet and then sign the transaction and then wait for your rewards and then pay for gas fees. We kind of want that to be all in one. So you just hold a token and you get your rewards without having to do anything extra. I think that's, if you're someone who is holding a up to $100,000, sometimes the gas fees might be bigger than the rewards you claim. If you're anyone above that, you're, always aware that you might be hacked if you go to some random website and click your wallet to connect. So we try to minimize that for our users and be as simple as possible.
Amazing. You personally, Chris, if you were not like building Renzo, like what else would you be building in the space?
That's an interesting question. I think generally I think the vault space is very interesting. I think it's not too dissimilar from restaking where we have to choose which AVSs we secure, but instead of doing that, you're choosing which DeFi protocols to deploy into. And I feel like, over the next 10 years, as more and more gets tokenized, as more assets come on chain, the vault space is going to grow a lot. So I think that's the space I would choose, if not for restaking.
Nice. And if you were not working in crypto, which industry would you be in?
I'm not sure. I like I think maybe I'd be working to build some drones or something or some tech company. Um, I am interested in manufacturing in general. So something along those lines, but it's hard to say, really.
Nice. Cool stuff. Let's dive a bit deeper into some questions about Renzo and PZETH. Um, so how does how does Renzo PZETH like plug stakers into Symbiotix like shared security protocol, and why was this integration important for Renzo?
Yeah. So PZETH essentially works in a few different parts. So on the user side, if you have stETH, so Lido's staked ETH, you can just deposit into our token, our liquid restaking token called PZETH, and then you receive PZETH back, and you don't have to do anything more. Uh, so then on our side, we take those deposits and we work with a number of different restaking operators. So these are guys who are institutional, grade operators. They run computers that essentially secure these networks. So if you have some sort of network, like Hyperlane, for example, which does bridging, you need to make sure that every bridge transaction is secure and it's done correctly and it's sent to the right address, for example. And then you can't just do that in a vacuum. You need some sort of, operator or some sort of computer to verify that these transactions were sent and that they were sent correctly. So we work with these operators who essentially verify those transactions, and then we put up the collateral that our users deposit in stETH as PZETH. We put up the collateral to make sure that it goes along with whatever staking is done. So we take care of everything on the back end, and then we work with uh, speaking to a number of different networks to make sure that they're the ones that we want to secure and have our operators secure as well. And I mean, this is really important to Renzo because as a liquid restaking protocol, our goal is to enable our users to have as easy a time as possible when they're securing in restaking. But also, we want to make sure that restaking as a whole succeeds. So there are a number of different networks which are available on Symbiotic, but aren't on different restaking protocols. So we want to support those networks and make sure that they're able to get the security that they need with whatever parameters that they need, so that they can grow as quickly as they can.
Got it. And so LRTs are like I guess like great tools the same way that like LSTs are great tools to abstract a lot the complexity of restaking in the staking and also in the reward and incentives sense. Could you walk us through like the reward structure, like including the staking yield, the easy point, the symbiotic points, and different types of network rewards that you guys like might get, and how do you manage that on behalf of your restakers?
Yeah. So on the underlying stETH, which is deposited and backing PZETH, you obviously get your typical Ethereum staking rewards. So we're seeing that come in at around 2.7% annually, uh, just compounding automatically without you needing to do anything. So that's the base yield of the staking yield. On top of that, um, you are also incentivized with Symbiotic points. So Symbiotic has a points campaign, and if you hold any active security on the Symbiotic network, you earn some points there. So we try to make sure that our users are able to get some Symbiotic points without having to worry about how they rebalance or securing different networks or anything else. They just have to hold PCE. And then you also earn network rewards from the networks that we secure. So, for example, Tansy, I believe, is already paying or will be soon paying real yield from their token, which just TGE'd in the past, couple of months. Some other networks are paying rewards in the form of points that might be worth something in the future. And then other networks in the future we think will be giving some sort of revenue split or some sort of split based on what exactly they are doing. So if we're securing a bridge, for example, and then the bridge does $1 million in volume, and from that $1 million of volume, it gets $10 in bridge fees. We believe that some portion of that would go to restaking security. So our goal generally is to make sure that our users can get rewarded for the security that they're providing, because we know from a depositor's perspective, you would never secure extra things if you not didn't get anything in return for it, because it just doesn't make sense. Why would you secure another network and do all the work of securing it if nothing in return happened? So we want to make sure for our users that they're getting the best deal for their collateral. So that's a lot of how we spend our time at Renzo, thinking about what's best for the depositors and what we can do to make it better for them. And I think generally the reward structure uh, is a lot focused on points in the past, but we believe, in the future it'll be a lot of live emissions, and we're excited for how things are going to look soon.
Amazing. And so I guess talking also more broadly about something else that you do and curators do in general, and that's the very important task of risk management. Within this responsibility, like, can you talk a bit how like Renzo approaches operator selection and like how it sees like the slashing risk within Symbiotic?
Yeah. So we work with a number of different operators. I can pull up the list exactly today, but we work with only institutional operators who run these nodes, who have been doing it for years now, that usually started off as just, Ethereum staking operators, but then they've transitioned to also support restaking. And these guys know what they're doing. They're big protocols that have secured hundreds of millions, if not billions of dollars in stake in the past. And we make sure that they're going to do a good job, because we don't want them, we don't want to delegate on behalf of our users to some sort of operator who doesn't know what they're doing and then ends up getting us all slashed. We only want to delegate to the people who know what they're doing and have a low likelihood of being slashed, and have a track record of that proves that. So right now we're working with Luga nodes, Peer 2, and Chorus 1. I'm sure anyone in the chat can, look them up and go to their website and see what we mean. But these guys are institutional players who have been around for a long time, and they really know what they're doing. So that's how we manage our operator selection. We are open to, expanding our operator selection to decentralize more, but we're trying to do that progressively, because if we went from day one, having, when we started, just one operator, to all of a sudden having 100 different ones, we can't really manage the quality as well. And then we introduce the risk of having a bad operator who gets slashed, and we don't want to do that. But we also pay a lot of attention to the slashing risk of securing different networks on Symbiotic, because like we said, our top priority is giving the best experience for our depositors, and we want to make sure that they don't get slashed as much as we can, because that's just a lose-lose scenario for them, because they end up losing some of their collateral, we end up getting some customers who are mad at us forever now because we lost them, some of their collateral, and we just don't want to do that. So we end up doing some analysis by talking to the teams behind the networks. We get to know them a little bit. We get to know what their vision for the protocol is. We get to know a little bit about how they're thinking about slashing and then what they want to do with it. And then we assess whether it is a use case that makes sense. For example, some protocols we think might actually need slashing. Like if you were trying to hijack a bridge, I keep bringing up the bridge example, but I think it's the most easy to explain. If you're trying to hijack a bridge and send tokens from one wallet address, instead of sending them to the correct address, you were sending them to the wrong one. That and trying to steal the funds that were being bridged, that is a bad thing, and it might make sense to be slashed in that case. So we want to make sure that the slashing, if it does exist, makes sense and it's for a valid use case. And then around that, we need to make sure that we are not getting slashed as much as possible. So we talk to our operators, we make sure that they're able to run all of the code that's needed correctly and that they're comfortable with it. And then if they aren't, then sometimes there are some networks which we don't delegate. These are networks which might have a lot of slashing that we aren't comfortable with subjecting our depositors to.
Really, really cool. And yeah, and I'm guessing also like in all of that risk management, like there is like just the active management of funds in a way, or at least like making sure that like the flows are, working well. You touched a bit upon it earlier, but can you just talk a bit about like how do you guys, automate the delegations, management of rewards, restaking of like assets that like you just got in rewards? How do you guys like manage that for the end users, and what does it unlock to have like this essentially like well oiled up machine?
Yeah. So we've been doing this for, since the beginning of restaking. It's been a question, which networks do you secure, which ones do you not? We generally want to see the restaking space grow as much as possible. So from that regard, we'd love to secure, every single restaking protocol that's looking for security. Every single network that asks for security, we would love to secure. The issue with that is, like we said, there are some security risks associated with that. So some slashing risk or some sort of operator costs that are associated with securing some of these that might not be worth it. So from that perspective, we make sure that if we are securing a network, it makes sense for our users. So that means that our operators are fine with it. Our operator costs, which it costs a little bit of money. In real life to run the operators, so to connect the electricity, to run the hardware that's associated with it. We want to make sure that our operators uh, are able to keep running, sustainably without having to be paid unsustainably. So we want to make sure that the networks we're securing have some sort of future promise. Um, and generally, it's a difficult process because it changes, every day some new protocol comes out that has a new update or whatever, and we have to stay on top of it. But we try to do what's best for our users as much as we can.
Really, really cool. And I guess more importantly on I guess like the DeFi integration side, like can you talk a bit about like Renzo's interchain plans for PZETH, and how that liquidity will support like emerging networks? And maybe can you just talk about like I guess the logic behind that? Like I guess like these like liquidity plays are it could be something very quite foreign to most of our audience.
Yeah. So I think we try to be wherever our users want us to be. So if we have a lot of demand on a certain L2, we'll bring PZETH cross chain using a bridge, and then we'll make it so that anyone can, hold it on that L2. What we're seeing with a lot of these new chains which have been launching, I think, Barachain, for example, was a good example a few months ago. Katana as well. Um, they have incentives that they allow for new bridging to the chain just as it comes out. because they want to bootstrap their chain. They want to have some liquidity on the chain, and it's really difficult to get that started without any incentives. So we think emerging networks specifically are a good place to target to be active on with our tokens, or just in general if anyone in the chat is listening and they're someone who wants to get as many incentives as they can, because I know that's a lot of the people in the chat. New and emerging ecosystems are the best place to look. But like I said, our restaking security also supports emerging networks on the restaking side. So these are, new protocols which in the past may not have been able to bootstrap a validator set. Like I think if you look at Monad, for example, that's a good example. They have been, working for a few different years to get a decentralized validator set. And sometimes their their mainnet gets delayed a little bit. It takes years and millions of dollars to get a truly decentralized validator set. Versus if you use restaking, you can just tap in and get delegations on day one without having to build all of that out. And it's much faster and it's much easier for anyone involved.
Got it, got it. And I guess like most importantly, like can you talk a bit about like what success usually like means for like an LRT, like in terms of DeFi integration? Like talk a bit about like the challenges of like getting liquidity, like where it matters, and like getting these integrations to have that flywheel effect that will essentially like make your LRT feel like almost like native ETH because it's so well integrated. Like, can you talk a bit about like what what makes success for an LRT on the DeFi side?
Yeah. Excuse me. On the DeFi side, typically, um, there are a lot of network effects. So if we are, the biggest, the most liquid LRT on Uniswap, for example, then people are more comfortable with swapping in and out and moving between this LRT and ETH, or any other token. So there's some element of that where you want to be one of the bigger tokens because you do earn some sort of network effects. But also on the same note, uh, if you are a bigger token, you can integrate with more DeFi integrations. So we want to be everywhere our users are. So if our users are using some sort of DEX on an L2 that we've never heard of before, but there's real demand for it, and we have a big token, we can have, the ability to actually go and integrate with that DEX on that L2. Versus if it's a very small token, it's difficult to support every single DEX that everyone wants to use because you just don't have as much liquidity available to do that. And so from our perspective, it's the DeFi network effects are really important, and being ingrained in DeFi and where the users want to use their collateral uh, is one of the most important things. And then that sort of brings in a flywheel where if more people are comfortable using the restaking token, or if more people want to use the restaking token because it's available on the dexes or lending protocols that they use, then that brings in more security, which means that these operators have more to work with when they're securing some of these networks.
Got it. And I guess my last question, I would love to have your opinion on the the past success and failures of the restaking ecosystem. You've said it yourself that restaking has gone essentially into like a hype and cool down cycle. And I'm really wondering, in light of that, what you expect the future of restaking to be like, what type of use cases you think it unlocks, and I guess what you're most excited about in the space,
Yeah. Um,
as well as your plans, as well as Renzo's plans within that excitement.
yeah, I think generally, um, shared security from restaking is the cheapest and fastest way for any protocol or network to start their validator set, to get the, geographic decentralization that they need. So from that perspective, I think we'll see over the next few years some of these protocols, which in the past might have raised, tens of millions of dollars and taken years to launch, start using restaking to really speed up and make it cheaper for themselves. So instead of raising all that money and taking all that time, they can instead just tap into restaking security and be done with their decentralization a lot quicker. And from their perspective, it's a lot easier. So we do see that restaking generally is the best solution for any network which needs decentralization as a whole. So any protocol which benefits from decentralization, we think will benefit from restaking, just because it makes development a lot easier for them. And we're also seeing a slightly different use case of restaking with slashing enabled, where there are things like CAP protocol, for example. CAP is a stable coin, and they're doing something interesting where their delegations, they are secured by restaking security. So restaking security provides a delegation. A certain borrower can use that security to borrow stable coins that are backing CAP. And then from there, if any liquidations happen, this restaking security could be slashed. So we're seeing some use cases like that come in, and we're trying to stay on top of them. We think they're very interesting. They're slightly different than the typical thing you think of when you think of restaking, but they're also a valid use case for restaking. And we think we're going to see a little bit more of that in the future, as well as, like I said, all these networks that benefit from decentralization can go a lot faster and a lot further if they use restaking. So from the next, few years, we think restaking might not be as hype as it used to be, but it's finally starting to hit that growth that really makes sense and shows the use case of it. But on that note, Renzo as well wants to be, one of the top choices for restaking. So if anyone is ever restaking, we want to be how they do it, where they do it with our tokens. We want to make it as simple for them as possible so that they don't have to think about which networks to secure or which ones not to secure because they're too risky, or then connecting with an operator. We want to handle all of that and just grow our restaking as much as we can. We've been really focused on that since our launch. And every day we're thinking about how we can make things easier for our users and how we can make it better for them.
Super clear, super clear. Thank you so much. I will pass the mic back to Symbiotix to manage the audience's question, and I'm sure that there will be plenty.
Awesome. That was a great Q&A session. I'll say, like, there were a lot of questions that have been answered by you, Chris, and I really enjoyed the session. So I think I have picked up some questions from the community itself. The first one is by Droven. He asks, what's next on the roadmap for Renzo X Symbiotix? Like, will there be more assets beyond EZAC, if, or deeper integrations with other DeFi protocols which you are able to share at this current point? I think this is basically like a little bit of alpha leak for the community who are here today.
Yeah. We have been evaluating, whether we should launch some sort of Bitcoin LRT, or if we should launch some sort of stablecoin LRT, or any other token which everyone wants to see. And we've been thinking about it, and we've been talking to the networks that are requesting security. I think the reason we haven't launched any of those until today is that we haven't seen that much demand from the networks for it. We think that today, a lot of these networks are still in the growth phase, so they're still small. They don't need that much security, and if they do need a lot of security, we have more than enough in terms of ETH to provide it. So we don't need to resort to developing a different LRT that uses some other token like wrapped Bitcoin or any other sort of Bitcoin ERC20 or stable coin. We do think, there are costs associated with starting a new LRT because we have to work with different operators. We have to get them to support the LRT. So we've been trying to balance that as much as we can. if we in the future see a lot of demand for, you know, a Bitcoin or a stable coin LRT, uh, we'll be sure to launch one. You know, I think we just want to do what our users want. But at the same time, we don't want to do something where our users might want it, but then there's no demand for it from the other side, which is the network side. So it's about balancing those two sides of the equation.
Awesome. Thank you so much for the answer. I hope that answers your question, Droven. So I think expanding on this question a little bit, when you mentioned about understanding the user's needs and basically go where the user wants, right? Like where can I would say like users like us in the audience head over to kind of like voice out or like vote on certain assets that we want them to be on Renzo? Like, how can we do that? Or is there a process whereby we can actually kind of like voice out on what kind of assets we want to see on Renzo itself?
I think our Discord channel, generally we have mods in there. We always have, and then the team listens to whatever feedback we get in there. So if anyone has some feedback that they want to give to us, we're always open to hearing it. We want to hear as much as we can from you guys, from the community, and make sure that we can address any concerns or anything that you guys want. I think, you know, the Discord is probably the easiest way to get in contact. Also on Twitter, if you at Renzo Protocol. Um, I know we have, you know, people reading that and making sure that they're, you know, being any concerns are being addressed. So if anyone has any ideas for that for us or anything that you want to see from us that we are not seeing, please let us know either, you know, in our Discord or on our Twitter profile.
Thank you so much for the answer. I have dropped the link to Renzo Protocol's Twitter. Do head over there and follow, give them a follow. And also head over to app.renzoprotocol.com to kind of like explore a little bit more in terms of the application and also to join their Discord as well, if any one of you is keen. Yeah. So let's move on to the next community question, which is from Andrew Glorious, right? So he mentioned that DeFi is still very complex or too complex for everyday users. So what steps are Renzo and Symbiotix taking to make restaking and new rewards simpler and clearer for the broader audience to understand?
That's a good question, and I think, you know, I've said it a few different times on this call, but I'll say it again. Renzo's focused on making things as easy as we can for our users. Um, and DeFi today, if you're, you know, if you wanted your mom to use it, she wouldn't be able to because, you know, it is really complex. Like I know my mom for sure would be really confused and she would probably get scammed and sign a wrong transaction or something. So we want to prevent that as much as we can. I think there is a lot that kind of goes on in the background that makes it seem like things are not progressing. Um, there's so much complexity in the background, you know, with even running a liquid restaking token, where we are already trying to simplify it as much as we can, and we have plans to do so more in the future. But like we said, like on the liquid restaking side, you don't have to manage any of the operator decisions or any of the smart contracts associated with it or which networks to secure or, you know, setting up the operators and running the hardware associated with them because we try to take that away from you guys and make it so you don't have to think about it at all. And then we're trying to, you know, every day expand into new things that we can abstract away. So if you have some DeFi protocols that you want to work with, um, we're thinking of how you can use those DeFi protocols while using your LRT without having to sign transactions and risk being, you know, on the wrong website or something. We just want to make it easier every day. But I think it's an iterative process. It might take, you know, it's been years that people have been saying something similar that DeFi is too complex. I think we're slowly seeing progress, and we'll be seeing a bit more in the future as well.
That's a really, really great answer, Chris. I definitely agree with you that over the past years, like we have seen DeFi evolve from like a super complex uh space to somewhat slightly simpler, yet still slightly complex. I mean, you can't entirely take away that complexity, right? Like no matter how you think about it, until somebody kind of like figure out a way to do so. But you can see that the space is really evolving. And thank you so much for that answer. I hope that answers your question, Andrew Glorious. Uh, thanks, Chris, for also simplifying it down for the audience as well. So I think the next question is from this is probably the last question. I think we have overrun a little bit. Sorry for taking so much time, Chris. But this question is from Rung Rao Den. So he asked, can restake assets on Renzo be simultaneously earning rewards on Symbiotic and used elsewhere in DeFi? So I think what he mean is basically whether it can be like a restake token used for some kind of other DeFi projects in that sense. Yeah.
I'm not sure I understood everything, but generally, we're a liquid restaking protocol. We're not just a restaking protocol. There's, an emphasis on the liquid with us. Um, so any token you receive is going to be by restaking with us is going to be in the form of an ERC20. ERC20 standard is just a typical token standard. So any token that you guys probably use throughout DeFi is most likely an ERC20. We have that ERC20. We build out DeFi integrations where we see some demand for them. So you definitely can stake and restake with Renzo, and then take that token that you receive and then use it throughout DeFi. If you mean, I think the other interpretation of the question, which I might be misinterpreting, is that can you use the restaked token to then restake again? And right now we're not seeing that happen. We don't have anyone, taking PZETH and then securing again on Symbiotic with it. It's just PZETH. Because if you think about the risk associated with it, if you were a network, you wouldn't want to take in collateral that has already been restaked before, because then you're just doubling up on potential, fraud or something going wrong. Because if an operator uh, on the first restaking goes wrong, and then you're using that collateral as your restaking collateral, then you're going to be potentially in double trouble. So we want to kind of avoid that. But yeah, you can use it restaking tokens throughout DeFi.
Sounds good. Sounds good. I think that answers the question for Umrao then, hopefully, because my interpretation of the question is the same as yours, Chris. Yeah. So, all right. I think we have come to the end of today's session. I would like to thank you, Chris, and also Edgar, for taking your time out to join us today. I know your schedules are really tight and everybody is really busy, but thank you again for taking this small little bit of time to come down and join us and to share a little bit of uh, your alphas and also what Renzo is building to the audience. And I believe the audience are really appreciative of that. So thank you both, Chris and Edgar. And also at the same time, I would like to thank the audience as well. 292 of you guys. Earlier on, I saw like 300 plus, but thank you all for tuning in today for today's ecosystem spotlight session with Renzo and Chris. I hope you guys learned a little bit more about what Renzo is all about and also heard some of the small little alphas that Chris was dripping as well. Thank you guys for tuning in as well. So before we truly close off today's session, Chris, do you have any last alpha leak you want to give to the audience? I mean, every session I try to squeeze as much as I can, and yeah, you know,
Yeah.
just for the audience.
I think, if you're someone who is trying to just maximize your rewards, um, that's what we think about as much as we can at Renzo, how we can do the best for our users, how we can maximize their rewards without having them, take on more risk or doing more. Um, we look at Symbiotic, we look at the different networks involved, and we consider rebalancing to networks that we think are more promising, or undelegating from those that we think are less promising, almost on a weekly basis. So if anyone, is in looking for somewhere to delegate and they don't want to think about all these things, feel free, PZETH, it's on our renzoprotocol.com app. We will, abstract away. We will take away all of the decisions from you guys, so you don't have to worry about, like I said, all those operators, or you don't have to worry about setting up and getting smart contracts ready and everything else. We try to, do best for our users and get them as many points and as many rewards as we can.
Awesome. I hope you guys heard that alpha from Chris. Thank you so much, Chris. And then last but not least, Edgar, do you have any last thing you want to share with our audience as well?
Nothing specific, but I want to thank you, the audience, for tuning in. I think this is probably like one of the biggest turn up that we've seen so far. So really great to see everyone excited to host our first LRT on the Discord AMA. Thank you so much, Chris, for tuning in and answering my questions and the audience's questions. I think this was a very nice chat. Of course, if you guys are new to Symbiotic, I would strongly recommend you guys stick around in the Discord, follow us on Twitter, and don't hesitate to ask questions and make yourself feel heard on Discord and on Twitter. And yeah, like maybe a bit of alpha. We have the next episode of the Blueprints episode with Spark, who's building SPK token staking on Symbiotic. I'll be I recorded a podcast with Sam McPherson, the CEO, and it should be releasing in the next couple of hours. So if you're interested, uh, be on the lookout for that episode drop.
Awesome, awesome. You guys heard Edgar. So Blueprints episode 3, I believe, is coming out. So I'm pretty excited
That'll be
for that.
the fourth one.
Oh, fourth. Oh my God. Oops. Sorry. Yeah, the fourth one
No
is
worries.
coming out, so I'm super excited about that for that. So stay tuned for that, guys. Awesome. Okay, so I'll see you guys in the next session, which is probably 2 weeks from now. So take care, guys. Have a great rest of the week. I'll catch you guys really soon. All right. See you guys and take care. Have a good day and goodbye.
Thanks.
Thank you
Bye,
guys.
everyone.